Welcome to the first episode of the 30-minute mortgage blueprint. My name is Austin Bluto, and thank you guys so much for tapping in with me. Um, I'm really excited to do this. We're going to have some of these quick little mortgage analytic home buying seminars, whatever you want to call it, once a week, every Thursday at 6:30 to 7 o'clock. So you never have to worry about making sure you have to, get off on time. As long as you got your phone and you got a headphone, you can plug in, tap in, and we'll take it from there. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Here is a quick agenda of everything that we're going to run down for today. Of course, I'm going to give a little more detailed introduction in a few minutes. We're going to tap into a refinance season, what that actually looks like. Are we in one? What does that mean for you? And the biggest pieces of information, I believe, is going to be the market analysis here coming up shortly after that. We're going to do a deep dive into where the market is here in South Carolina and what it means for you as a consumer of real estate and how you should be preparing and strategizing your finances to get ready to be to take advantage of the industry. Okay, so after that, we're going to talk about how to invest in real estate if you're a first-time home buyer, whichever program that you're going to want to use. And then we're going to shift gears and we're going to run down how to protect that investment once you've acquired real estate. What's the next steps after that? We're going to get into the details of a DSCR loan. All right. Okay. And then finally, I have a slide at the very end where it's going to have some basic contact information. If you want to get with me, if you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation, we can make sure we get all that squared away for you. All right. Just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Austin Bludorn. I am actually still serving. I am an Army veteran, but I am still serving in the United States Army as a reserve service member. I did start my career as an active duty member back in 2016. I'm sorry, back in 2013. I got out in 2016, 2017, and shortly after that, I got into doing mortgages for a small family-owned company here in Somerville. I got into it as a processor at first, and then as I began to get deeper into it, I got licensed to become a mortgage loan originator, and that what started what I believe has been my true calling in this lifetime, in my short walk on this earth. I believe that I'm doing the right thing and walking in my purpose by becoming an expert in this field and providing information to you and how you need to position yourself to be able to take advantage of real estate and all the advantages that it has for you. I am married. I have a wife and I have two wonderful kids, and they're at the forefront of everything that I am doing right now. And that is pretty much it. That is pretty much it. I love what I do. I love what I am, and I love being able to help people. I've been blessed to be a blessing in this short little journey of about 8 or 9 years now in the mortgage industry. If I could start any conversation with somebody who is brand new to buying a house, I would say you have to learn how to cut off the white noise. You have to learn how to speak life into your situation, speak life into your finances, be very intentional about what you're trying to accomplish. And just understand that there's going to be a lot of opposition from people even close to you about what it is that you want to do. You may have come from a long line of people who have been renting their entire life, and that's all they knew. Rents due on the first, rents due on the first. You may be the first one in your generation to purchase real estate, and that's okay. Don't believe the lies. Speak life into your situation. Owning a home is still better than renting one. I don't care what anybody says. Is it easier to rent? Absolutely. But the benefits of owning a house are monumental when you compare it to renting. On this particular slide, I know those two numbers don't add up, but it has some percentages I didn't feel like adding. So we got 73-26, right? According to the Census Bureau, back in 2025, 73% of the people annotated on a search, on an inquiry identified themselves as owning a home. Whether it was one home, multiple homes, these were home owners. Only 26% of the people on the Census Bureau in 2025 were identified as renters. So when I say speak life into it, the news, for example, has a really consistent habit of pushing forward something that is negative. We don't always get the most positive things that are happening locally in our community, locally in our government, in our national government. If something is catastrophic and something is horrible, that's the first thing that you hear, because that's where everybody's attention goes. They want to see what's going on. And the same thing happens with the mortgage industry. Uh, when they're talking about all the horrible things about buying a house, prices of homes, interest rates, these are statements that are made from places that do not have any substance. These are statements that are made from people who have probably never been through the process. Or they're comparing the process to a time that was a complete anomaly. I'm speaking directly about the COVID international or global pandemic that we had that resulted in an economic shift across the entire world. Yes, we saw interest rates drop to historic lows, and unless we have a global pandemic of that proportion, we will probably never see that perfect storm happening again. So let's move forward and talk about the benefits and how we can get ourselves into the 73% that we're seeing right now, right? So renting gives you a place to live. Owning gives you a financial foundation. When you rent, your monthly payment builds your landlord's wealth. When you own, every payment helps your equity, which is essentially your ownership stake in the property. Over time, that seriously matters. All right. If, excuse me, if home values rise, then homeowners benefits from appreciation, which means you get to benefit from your property being worth more than what it was when you paid for it. So, if I have these high speed earbuds, right, and I paid $5 for these, and then another a week or a month goes by, and I found out that these same earbuds are now worth $10. Some more time goes by. Now they're worth $20. Eventually, they're worth $100. That's what we call an appreciating asset. And that is the basis of all real estate, especially in a high appreciation state that we're in right now in the great state of South Carolina. Owning also creates payment stability. A fixed rate mortgage stays relatively predictable while rent can increase every year. Over time, many homeowners end up paying less monthly than renters in the same area because their principal and their interest payment has never changed. It's the benefit of a 30-year fixed mortgage. There's also tax and wealth advantages. Homeowners can build generational wealth and borrow against the equity if they need it. And eventually eliminate the housing payment altogether once the loan is paid off. A renter will always have a housing payment. Even when the house that they're in, there's no more loan against it. You stayed in that house or rented for 30 years, you've paid off somebody else's mortgage. And now they have no mortgage. And all the money that they're charging you in rent goes straight into their profit or to their pocket. And if you think for a second that they're going to lower their rent because they no longer have a mortgage, you really need to wake up. Now, renting absolutely has benefits. There's flexibility in renting. You can, if you don't like it, you can leave in 6 months or a year, depending on your lease. There's lower maintenance and responsibility and lower upfront costs. Yes, all these things are true. But you are going to have a huge benefit in the long run, right? Long term ownership is still one of the primary ways that middle class Americans like yourself build wealth. The key is to buy responsibly. Don't overextend. Buy within your budget, develop and have and maintain a budget, and plan to stay long enough for your equity to work in your favor. A home should be a stable place to live, but over time, it can also become one of the strongest financial assets that you ever own. Okay. So when we talk about ownership, we talk about being able to own the property long enough to tap into the equity. But what does that look like? What do we mean when I say tap into equity? Well, first of all, you got to understand that equity is only thing equity is the distance, the dollar amount distance between how much you owe on the property on the mortgage and how much the property is actually worth. So remember the example that I gave you about the headphones. Every single year the value of your real estate increases, and every single year you owe less and less on that mortgage because you are paying it off. This is a classic example of burning a candle at both ends. Okay. So how do we tap into it, and at what point do we need to strike in order to make a financial decision that is going to really benefit us, right? This is what's called the refinance season. And this season looks different for every single consumer of real estate. But for you to be able to identify what your season is, there's three things that we have to go over in order for it to become a clear picture. First, you need to understand there's only two reasons why we refinance. There's only two ways you can do it. You can do a cash out refinance, or you can do a rate and term refinance. So the big question is, do you want to walk away with equity in your home? Do you want to walk away with a dollar amount? That's what a cash out is. That is going to have a higher loan amount because you're borrowing more money because the house has more value than what you had initially paid for it. And you're going to be pulling some of that money out in the form of a new loan. Now, you can use that money for debt consolidation. You can use that money to purchase more real estate. You can use it for a variety of different things. Okay. A rate and term is a little more specific. We're only looking at reshuffling the debt on your mortgage to try to get a lower interest rate. So are you walking away with cash, or are you trying to lower the interest payment? You need to be able to identify the season and anticipate the window. As a homeowner, how do you even begin to do that? You do that by paying attention to the world around you. There's going to be a time where you notice a lot of people are going to be selling houses in your home. They're going to be selling houses in your area, buying houses in your area. Take a look at what these houses are being sold for. Be cognizant of what you paid for your property, because the purchases of the houses around you are going to be the driving factor of what determines your new value could potentially be. We saw the biggest example of this in the late 2020s during the COVID pandemic. Houses that were once listed or bought for $150,000, built for $200,000, were selling for three, four, $500,000. That was a major window for people with mortgages to refinance because the value in their homes had increased exponentially. Also, we had historically low interest rates, so they were refinancing one into a higher loan and getting their hands on a ton of equity, but they were also doing it at a lower interest rate. So being cognizant of what's happening in the world around you will help you identify when your window is coming available. And the third thing to help you identify that, the season, is make sure you have clear objectives. Remember, you only have two options when it comes to a refinance: cash out or rate and term. You need to know what your goals are and be honest and transparent with yourself, with your budget, and with your finances when it comes to what your objectives are. That what do you want out of a refi? You need to take into consideration how to leverage the closing costs with your savings. That's important if you're doing a rate and term refinance. Now, a cash out is a cash out. You want the extra money that the appreciation has given you. We don't need to go into depth with that. But when it comes to a rate and term refinance, you need to understand you need to know exactly what it is you're looking for. And the reason why that's so is because there's a thing called closing costs. And you need to be able to leverage your closing costs with what you're saving every single month so that you can identify what your break even point is. If your closing costs are $10,000, how many, and you're saving $1,500 a month, how many months will you have to go at this new mortgage so that your risk outweighs the reward, or your reward meets the risk? Where do these two meet in the middle to where your closing costs and your savings cancel each other out? Are you willing to go that distance? Do you have to wait a little bit longer so that you can maybe see what the rates are, or should you still keep shopping if you haven't found a lender that's going to give you the closing costs that you need? All things to take into consideration. But even with all that being said, the biggest thing that you want to make sure you're following as a homeowner or as a potential consumer of real estate is the actual market itself. What is going on in the job economy? What is going on in the financial economy? Take into consideration all of these things. In 2026 in South Carolina, the outlook that we are seeing right now is strong population growth. We have an aggressive economic development and a housing market that is cooling but not crashing. Okay? That combination matters enormously for both home buyers and for homeowners waiting for the refinance opportunity, looking for that refi season that we just talked about. Also on this slide, we can see the average interest rates for conventional FHA and VA loans. Conventional loans are going to be a slightly higher than government loans, and this is all based on a 30-year fixed mortgage with somebody who has good to great credit scores. Now, this is not specific to one particular lender or one particular bank, so don't marry yourself to these numbers. But this is generally speaking, this is a range as what you can expect on a conventional loan between 6.1 to 6.4. The government loans are going to be between 5.4 and 5.9. So we're seeing mid to low fives on the Govy side, mid to low sixes on the conventional side. The key characteristics for this are because inventory is actually improving. And when that happens, sellers become negotiable. That means that they'll be willing to play with the numbers, play with the selling price, pay with the closing costs. That they're willing to give you more money to help you with your closing costs if it means you can close your deal faster. Excuse me. These properties are spending a lot more time on the market, so sellers are getting tired of waiting months and months and months to sell their house. So yeah, they're becoming a little more negotiable. Buyers are regaining leverage and prices are flattening, not declining, but rather flattening and not really exploding upward like we saw during the pandemic. Some of the biggest drivers of this economic growth that we're seeing is the manufacturing expansion, logistics, the ports. I don't know if some of you recall, it was about a year or so ago, the Charleston ports had shut down completely. But these guys, I believe they're back open now, and it's some of the biggest driving force of the economy in the Charleston area. The Department of Defense has a huge staple with the joint military bases here. The automotive industry, with all of the different car companies and manufacturing companies that we have in the port city, we're seeing a huge increase of growth thanks to these companies. Population migration from the Northeast in California. We talked about that when COVID first happened. A lot of these folks liquidated all of their real estate, liquidated all of their finances, and they moved to the South. Okay. A $500,000 property in California is not going to be the same as a $500,000 property over here in South Carolina. So these guys were literally scooping up properties left and right. It was some of the best investment that they had ever seen compared to what they were used to. And also, thanks to the influx of social media and normal media, we're able to see that South Carolina and Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and some of these more coastal areas have been named by um, a lot of different sites as the perfect retirement spot. So we're seeing a lot of retiree migrate to the South Carolina area. And that's just the nature of it. The word's out, so people want to come here. People want to retire here. It's a peaceful place for the most part if you're in the right area, right? But as far as the growth itself, manufacturing alone now contributes to over 300 billion annually to the state of South Carolina, its economy, and supports over 30% of the jobs statewide. Jobs create housing. Jobs create housing demand, and housing demand stabilizes prices, and stabilized prices prevent large market crashes. This is why in South Carolina, we're likely to avoid the type of dramatic housing correction that many people are hoping for. Okay. But what is the biggest holdup? If all of these great things are happening, then how come more people are not investing in real estate? How come they're not able to? And that has to do with a little thing called affordability. Property taxes are going to increase every single year. Homeowners insurance is going to increase every year. These are natural parts of finances. HOA costs are climbing, right? But home prices remain the same. So what is going on? The problem is, especially in the coastal area of South Carolina, nationally, home prices rose to about 54% since 2020. However, wages only rose to about 29%. South Carolina experienced that same imbalance. That means that people's incomes did not keep pace with housing inflation. So while South Carolina's economy is genuinely improved, it has genuinely improved, the housing prices still accelerated faster than the local wage growth could naturally justify. That's why affordability is so painful for many first-time home buyers. There's all of these great elements floating around, but affordability is just a crippling element. It's the brake pad. It's the brakes of the car, of the engine for the mortgage market. So even with that being said, it is still a great time for you to invest in real estate, but you have to be strategic about it and you have to be smart. It takes planning. And that's what I like to bring as your mortgage broker of the Blue Dawn Financial Group. I like to teach you and educate you how to invest in real estate. What does that process actually look like? So the first thing I would like to say is if you're looking at real estate, the first thing you want to do is talk to a professional. If you have a problem, if you have a medical issue, you go to a doctor. If you got a problem with the law, you go to a police officer or you go to a lawyer. If you have a question about mortgages, then you need to talk to a licensed mortgage professional. You've already achieved that. That's why you're listening to this broadcast, to this presentation right now. Step two, once you've done that, you need to follow the instructions of the mortgage professional because this is what we do every day. You only buy a house once or twice. Most of us only buy property a handful of times. So you need to work with somebody who knows what the process is. Now, when it comes to the process, I believe in streamlining a process so I have no more issues than what could already possibly go wrong. At the Blue Dawn Financial Group, I've broken down the process into three phases. The first phase is that's where we have our initial conversation, and I get to understand what you're actually looking for, what your goals and objectives are, not out of the real estate, but out of the mortgage. We're having conversations about down payment size, potential interest rate, amortization schedules, closing costs, things of that nature. And once I get a pretty good idea of what you're looking for, I'm going to send you a link so that you can complete the mortgage application and we can get your credit pulled. Within that same email, there's going to be a client document checklist. Once you do the application, we get your credit pulled, and I have all of the documents that are listed on that document checklist. Now I have the tools necessary to start shopping for the perfect lender in your scenario. I'm going to identify the product that's going to best suit your needs, and I'm going to identify the lender that's going to give you the best product with the best terms. So, with being a mortgage broker, I have a bunch of lenders that are across the country. They all have the same products, but this is where it allows me to shop for you. So as opposed to you going from one bank to the next bank to the next bank and getting your credit pulled every single time, when you have a mortgage broker, we only need one credit report, and then now I'm shopping for you, and I'm shopping multiple lenders across the entire country. That's saving you time, and that's saving you money, and that's saving you credit opportunity as well. Phase one complete. Now we move on into phase two, and this is the one of the most exciting times of the job, is because now you get a pre-approval letter. You get a pre-approval, and you get to take that letter with your agent while you're house hunting and while you're house shopping. Once you find the house of your dreams and you want to make a move on that house, the very first thing the seller is going to ask you is, do you have a pre-approval letter? That's what this is. All of your credit, income, and assets have been verified and scrubbed against not only Fannie and Freddie Mac guidelines, but also against the lender overlays to make sure that you have a clear path into the closing table. Once they accept your contract, they accept your offer, your realtor is going to complete a contract which you, them, and the sellers are all going to sign. And once we have all collected signatures, congratulations, your contract is now ratified. Now the ball's back in my court. I need to revise your mortgage application that you did back in phase one and update it with the correct property address, the features and terms and conditions of your contract. Are we getting any seller credit? Are the sellers paying for anything? Or is the HOA included? All of these things, I have to go through this contract meticulously and make sure that the application reflects you and your contract correctly. Once I do that, now we go into phase three, and we are looking at actually submitting your loan. Once I submit your loan into the new into once I submit your loan to the lender, it may take a day, it may take a couple of days, but the next thing we're going to hear back is that we now have our CLA, our conditional loan approval. The conditional loan approval is a document that basically says the lender is going to give you the money that you are needing to buy this home, but we have to clear these certain amount of conditions in order to make that happen. Now, these conditions can be as simple as we need updated bank statements or updated pay stubs or an updated driver's license, to going into specifics about what we need from an appraiser, what we need from an attorney in order to get the documents necessary to get us to closing. But regardless of what's happening, this is a stopping point, because you and I are now going to have a conversation about this, and we're going to go over every single condition on this CLA. And by doing that, we're going to make sure that you are not going to see any conditions that you cannot satisfy. And after you give me the green light, we're going to order the appraisal, order title work, and we're going to start knocking out these conditions left and right. Before it's all said and done, we're going to get our clear to close. We've satisfied all the conditions. We're going to set a date with the attorney, and we're going to take some time to celebrate the newest member of the home ownership community as you sign your documents and purchase your house. But let's say you've done this before. You've already bought your house, and now you're looking at, I want to, I've been watching the market, and I think I have an opportunity to get my hands on some of the equity in my property. I want to now buy more real estate. How do I do that? Okay, that's a great question. Now we're talking about how you protect your investment. You go through this entire process all over again, but the difference is now you're looking at products exclusive to investors. And one of the biggest clickbait items out there right now, if I can say that, is the DSCR loan, the debt service coverage ratio. It's a mortgage product exclusive to investors, not allowable for primary residents, and it's a powerful product because, as opposed to Fannie and Freddie Mac guidelines that require your income to be analyzed in order to procure a mortgage, this product does not care about your debt to income ratio, nor does it care about qualifying your income. It qualifies the mortgage based on the cash flow of the property. There is unlimited scalable investing potential with this program. Fannie Mae may limit you to, I think it's 15 or 20 properties that you can own. With the DSCR loan, you can own as many properties as you can get your hands on. There's faster and more simple underwriting procedures because we're not going through income documents. So investors can qualify even when the conventional DTI says no. We're not considering what your DTI is because we're not calculating income. Also, when we look at some of the major changes from COVID, a few years ago, they implemented the Airbnb, short-term rentals used by primary residences. The DSCR loan has now allowances to finance and fund these types of properties. So let's say you actually bought your house back in 2022, you pulled some equity out in 2025, and now here you are ready to look at procuring or obtaining an investment property. The DSCR loan is one of the most powerful products in the mortgage industry right now. So I know I said in my advertisements that this is only going to be 30. We're at 31 minutes right now. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. Next week, we have a lot more to discuss. So if you still want to hear some more, you have another opportunity, same time next week. We're going to be talking specifically to my veterans. VA loans. We're going to be talking about credit reports, using a mortgage lender versus the mortgage broker, and how you need to determine which route is going to be best for you. So make sure you're with me next week. What date is that? That is the 14th, May 14th at 6:30 p.m. Okay, Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be covering these topics. If you have some information or if you have some questions that you wanted to go over in a little more depth, I'm putting up the slide right now for you to be able to reach out to me. My phone number, 843-926-8588. That is my personal number. It comes straight to me. I also have my email address listed down there. Feel free to contact me with any questions that you have. My name is Austin Bludorn with the Bludorn Financial Group. Thank you so much for attending. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you next week.